Hello, you're listening to 101 Part-Time Jobs, where the idea is I speak to bands and artists about how they've been able to survive doing what they do when we all know that it must be so hard making a living playing music. On today's episode, Ezra Furman, who in a few moments will announce her new album All of Us Flames, coming out on the 26th of August. The first track from it, Forever in Sunset, will be played on Lauren Laverne's Six Music show this morning. It's very early here in London, which you might be able to tell by the sound of my croaks. Thank you so much for listening to 101 Part-Time Jobs. This is episode 146. I've had members of Belle and Sebastian, Teenage Fan Club, Poppy Ajuda, Matil, Hot Water Music on recent episodes. So cheers for coming along with this. Introducing Ezra Furman. Go well. Cheers.
The summer of the crash, the winter of survival mode.
Well, at this point, I have a bit of a dream gig, which is I do music for this TV show. So I got a corporate gig. I got a job.
Sex education.
Sex education, exactly right. The Netflix series Sex Education. And that pays, decently. It couldn't be my only source of income, but it could, it could almost be. And doing what I'm doing, I'm raising a child and working on music all the time. I don't know. I look back even to just before that, to 2018, and I'm like, how was I even living? But I also didn't have a kid until late 2018. So it's all teetering along, just lucky enough to make it happen, basically. So many people just must, this was already true forever, that it's so financially difficult to be in a band. I got all these special little trickles down from my parents' money, even though my parents were never paying my rent. They were never, I was I don't take money from my parents, but I did, I got the first time I formed a band, I just kind of borrowed my parents' minivan and then just permanently borrowed it and ran it into the ground. And they were happy, they were like, it's our old car. We got a new car. That kind of trickled down. That's the class privilege that it's harder to trace and talk about. Really what I think about, you've been listening to some episodes of your show, and what I think about from my life is I'm thinking about my early 20s when I really had formed a band, and I was somehow there's something here that's right for me, and somehow I got to make this work. College is over, which, by the way, my parents paid for and were able to and happy to pay for. But I did make this break where I was I won't take any money from my parents, and I stopped really telling them. And then I just I just ran out of money very quickly, and then I stopped paying rent. I just started to be, without my own place to staying on couches, and not really telling most people that that's what I was doing and that I didn't have anywhere to be.
You're quite good at being the last person out.
Right, yeah, I'm just oh yeah, no, I will just be here for just a little bit longer, and then you can go to work, and I'll just let myself out, and then I just thank God I can stay here all day. Yeah, this is a complicated time, and it's complicated because I feel sort of the character in the Pulp song, Common People, who thinks poor is cool, and what I'm not quite there. I don't think I wasn't doing it as a tourist for the pleasure of poverty tourism, but watching roaches climb the wall. If you call your dad, he could stop it all. That was kind of me, But it's complicated when you you don't know if you can talk to your parents. You don't I don't know, in exile from my parents, and feeling totally kind of alone in the world and misunderstood, queer, figuring it out. we formed our band, my first band, Ezra Furman and the Harpoons. We formed in college. After college, I was truly unmoored. I didn't know how to find a place to live. And I found one really last minute with all these people who were much older than me who I didn't know and didn't meet. And then one of them robbed me. And like from one of my actual housemates stole my checkbook and wrote a bunch of checks and stole my money.
Wow.
And he also stole my my laptop and then gave it back. It was complicated. So I just moved out of there, and then I didn't have any more money. So I just was on people's couches and trying to see how long seeing how many hours you can sit at Dunkin' Donuts after having bought one egg and cheese croissant and like sit there and like try to write something all day and hopefully no one tells you to leave.
And that was in Massachusetts still?
Yes, in the Boston area. But I was like really a mess, and I was working a part-time job at the movie theater in that era. My uncle got me a job at a movie theater that he managed, I guess. And that was a horrible job. I was selling popcorn and tearing ticket stubs, and for whatever reason, that job was one where they had about 6 minutes of going through little snippets of pop songs and like doing ads that was always playing, and it just in an endless cycle, the same 4 like Fall Out Boy songs and stuff, and sitting there eating free popcorn all day and reading Dostoevsky and just being like, I was not in a stable place, or truly not.
I feel like it's sort of trodden territory when you're playing in, usually, inspired by punk, and what comes with that is a level of humility, right? And so I feel like it's quite often you speak to people who aren't full-time in their band, and the admission to admit, yeah, I'm in a band and that's what my main focus is. Could you admit to yourself at that point, or admit to friends that Ezra Furman and the Harpoons at that time, that was what you really wanted to pursue?
Well, I couldn't really hide that I had nothing else of any significance going on, like we were just working on that, and it was like the kind of thing where there was just enough going on where it kept seeming like somebody was going to sort of swoop down and make us into a successful band. Because like music blogs, you could just like get a good review on Pitchfork somehow, or like you just felt like some blogger was going to like come to your show and be like, this is the best band in the world. And then everyone in like hipster America would agree with them. So we played shows to nobody all the time. Looking back, I feel like I thought that was more how it worked than it is. Like at least how it worked for me, for us, was like you just work so hard for forever and you make small, slow, little progress. And it kept us hanging on that I'm trying to remember when things happened. We did have this shocking thing. The first time we ever went on tour, we played in Chicago, and my friend and sort of manager, who had just started to sort of call himself we weren't really calling him my manager. He was just helping us out with a couple of things. He got someone he knew at a record label to come to our show, and we got signed to the Chicago indie label. And we were so shocked, and we were like, this changes everything. And truly it changed very little. But what it did change is we got to make a record, and like we were sort of plugged into a process that we knew nothing about how to approach. I mean, we had already made our like demo record recorded in our dorm rooms somehow, very shoddily. But yeah, it's just it's so strange to think about. Like I was so like rabid to write and perform these songs that like I think it didn't matter what my life was like, really. at least for a period of a few years, I was like, this is the only thing that matters to me at all. Like I when I thought about sort of pursuing some other path, I'd usually become near suicidal. Like I was just like, I cannot do something else right now. And I didn't think it was gonna work, really. I didn't think it was gonna become my livelihood.
There's that breadcrumb trail, finding, a friend who's helping you out, and an indie label in a town where, you're not living at the time. That's like votes of confidence.
Pretty quickly, I think we stopped expecting anything to go well. I just accepted for a long time that you just about half the shows you play in this life of playing 150 shows a year, about half of them, there's fewer than 10 people there. And that's just what we're doing right now. And
that's often the case in the States, is it?
Oh yeah. You don't think that's the case in the UK? See, everything seems totally different in the UK. We do everything on a shoestring and expect nothing. And then we got to the UK and people were they were trying to tell us you don't have to 6 of you get one Travelodge hotel room. Maybe you should get 2 or 3 rooms. And we were like, no. What? That's suicide. I don't know. We took a really perverse pride, including in my current band, into 2015. We were still just everything we do for absurdly cheap and suffer through. And at some point we started to realize oh, this is making me hate my life, and maybe that's worse. Maybe it's not worth, or maybe it is worth I don't know. It's a hard thing though. It's a hard thing. Our second album, somehow this song became a hit on Austrian radio.
No.
And
which tune?
It's called Take Off Your Sunglasses. It was, whatever this means, we just heard in the summer of 2009, this song is number 1 on Austrian national radio, FM Führer.
Fantastic.
And so we were okay, we're going to Austria, baby. And the shows were much better than any we had ever, they were packed shows. And we were what? And it was only true in Austria and maybe a little bit of Germany. And then we went to Austria 4 times, and it just kept us hanging on somehow. It just kept us hanging on. We were there's something here. They liked it.
I feel that for bands, when it's good, it's good. You say, you're going up. And then at some point, maybe the tour winds down and you don't do anything for 3 months. You're going to feel that's, you know what I mean? That's a downwards turn, even if it's totally not to your fan base. Is that, have you experienced that?
Right. It's it's the weird thing of everyone was just clamoring to touch my hand in this one room across the ocean. But now I'm just home in squalor. And it's profoundly bizarre that there's I don't know, there's I don't know. There's people in the world who are oh my God, I want to meet her. And then people in my life who are just that fucking idiot. He's always saying dumb shit at parties. It's weird that the music industry is sort of predicated on encouraging a sort of hysteria, a sort of fantasy about that artists are special people.
Do you have that fantasy when you see someone that, whose record you love?
I would say there's a few people left who I still kind of feel oh my God. But mostly not. I mean, I do remember there was this festival where we were in this trailer, and the next trailer over, just right next to us, was the Pixies. And they were in there just sitting around. I'm I know. I know they're there. And somebody was you could go just talk to them, say hi. I don't know, make a connection. And I was literally, I don't want to. Why would I? I would just feel a past. And not that I wasn't scared to talk to them. I was just I'm not going to. It's a funny little relationship, that fan artist thing. I'm happy to hear somebody's I love your music. I love this record. That's cool. You can tell me. but like I think every performer who's been sort of approached with a little too much entitlement, like I'm just wary of somebody being like, you have to pay attention to me now and listen to everything I have to say. And my favorite thing is to just like sit down at the bar where we're going to play in a few hours, and then there's a fan there and they're like chill and they're like, hey, it's nice to meet you, good luck tonight, and they're just they treat me like a normal person. My friend had a story of like he met I think he met David Byrne. He had this dream experience where they were just talking in a friendly way all night for like a long time, and they were like getting to know each other, and then finally he was like, should I do this, should I do it? And he was like, I gotta ask you, could I just get an autograph, and like it just killed it. The whole interaction deflated, and he was like, oh yes, I will sign this for you. And then like instantly it like he was like, that was over, he hates me now. Which if you just remind someone that they're not normal and yet they can't be at ease, that sucks. It sucks for me when that happens.
So did you go over to say hi to Black Francis and the Pixies?
I did not. I don't know. I mean, I saying that now, I sort of regret it. I did. I've met
There we go.
I've met a couple of people who are real like heroes to me. I became friends with the lead singer of what was one of my favorite bands. And at the moment I formed a band, it felt like a tribute to this band. The band is Art Brut.
Yeah.
Eddie Argos.
Yeah, I just read his book.
He has a book? Oh, I'm not paying enough attention. But the only way it works is, I don't know. I'm not so into mystery. And I don't like, if I had a chance to meet like Bob Dylan, I don't know. I don't like, I guess I'd want to. Like, I guess I'd feel stupid if I didn't and I had the chance. But like, I'm not in love with Bob Dylan. I'm in love with Bob Dylan's records, Mm-hmm. And you find out that some artist is a crappy person, and I personally, I'm like, I don't care at all. What does that have to do with my experience? Nothing. I mean, to a point. At some point, it's like I can't dance to R. Kelly anymore. But I kind of have that ethos of like, people aren't that special. People are just people, and like, I don't think we should treat people like gods. It's idolatry. I'm always like, I like think in that more like Mike Watt. Mike Watt makes sense to me, how he treats them all from the Minutemen. And you do your own, I don't know. It was such a hard thing for me to like start to let people like carry something for me, or like let myself like, I don't know, talk to some fans or something while my band and our one crew member are like lifting heavy amps. I'm like, I'm working. I have to help everyone work. I can't like go be having a nice social time while people are lifting heavy things. And finally, at some point, like somebody was like, you're working also when you're like talking to strangers, and you're selling records when you're signing. Like, it's okay. It was like it went like against my instincts, and in some deep way, I'm like, nobody's supposed to be working harder than me just because I'm like the lead singer. Who cares about that,
Have you acclimatized to that? The fact that, doing interviews, I mean, you're working right now, probably not getting paid for it. I'll give you a $5. But
thank you.
Have you acclimatized to that?
I know on Zoom, you can't even buy me a drink. Oh, this isn't Zoom, but yeah, I fully recognize how much work it all is, and actually how like I'm kind of doing harder work than loading out the gear from the stage to the van. There was a terrible time, like pretty early in my current band's life, that I was like, you guys, this is about to become something that is like paying all our rent in a serious way. We're working hard now because it's gonna be paying off soon. And then I like kept saying that. I'm like, the next tour though, that's when you're really gonna get. And it's like, okay, obviously I said that before, but I think it's actually true for the next time. And then like, I don't know. It was like, they're gonna revolt. They're gonna kill me. They're gonna murder me if I keep saying this. And I stopped saying it. And then I don't know, but then it just started to kind of look up, and there's, I don't know, something else that does happen in that time. We became this rock and roll band that like there's some ESP now. We are so good together because we've played the crappiest venues, we've played the best venues, we've played many times, played every night, show after show after show for years. So that's something you can't quite fake, I guess. You become that kind of band that has ESP. A big moment was like, I'm Jewish and I'm a religious Jew, and I'm pretty non-traditional in many ways, and I'm pretty traditional in many ways about it. And one of my core Jewish observances is that I observe the Sabbath, the seventh day, the day of rest, on which I do not work, do not travel, do not write, do not use money, do not use electricity. Like, there's all this stuff that makes it this holy island in time. And I was doing that. I haven't done that all my life, and I didn't do it consistently, and I was doing it more and more. And the only time I wasn't doing it at some point was when I went on tour. And I was like, this is killing me not to do this. But like, I can't be in a band and not play on Friday nights. I don't see how it's even feasible. And I was also, we were playing those shows to 6 people in Salt Lake City. And I was like, I think this is not what I should do anymore with my life. It's like, there's too many, I've been doing this for so long and it's not going particularly well. I made a great record called Day of the Dog and nobody seems to care. We were touring all over America. I was dragging my band through the mud. I was like, I think this ends now. And a big reason was that I have to play on Friday nights, and that's the only time I ever work on Friday nights. I don't want to do that. It matters too much to me spiritually. And then sort of everyone in my band and my manager was like, it sounds like you might want to still be a musician if you just didn't have to play on Friday nights. And I was like, well, yeah, but that's not possible. And they were like, I think it is possible. Like, just do it. Just say that is what I need now. And then that is what you will always do. And it's amazing that it had not occurred to me that I could say like, I need this that's inconvenient for everybody, but it's the only way I can keep doing this job. And then that's what I did. And I've never, since mid 2014, I've never played on Shabbat, on the Sabbath. And
wow.
It's so, not only is it is truly what I needed as a person with a spiritual practice and a commitment to that ritual, but also it sort of broke my brain open just to even be like, oh, if I really need something, I can be like, I need this. And I know that it seems like I could go without it, but I actually can't. And I'm the authority on what those things are. And I think that around that time we stopped sleeping on floors and we were like, let's get hotel rooms, you guys. Let's really not ask from the stage anymore whose floor we can sleep on. Essentially, I haven't really had a job since a long time ago, since 23, and I briefly lived in New York City, and I was a walking courier in Manhattan, and I would just bring these sort of unmarked packages around for this delivery service called Lightspeed Delivery. I would get the jobs that were so unimportant that they didn't need to get there fast on a bike or something. They can just give it to the idiot kid who doesn't know how to get around the city. And I guess I had a couple of sort of jobs since then. I was putting up posters for this Chicago venue at some point, going around to record stores and putting up posters for their month of shows. The Hideout in Chicago, one of my favorite venues. But that was barely a job, you know? It's very confusing financially to look back on like how was I surviving in like 2011? I mean, I guess like I was on tour more often than not, you know? Like barely had a life at home. We just played shows a ton. I remember in 2012, I was like, my life is not financially sustainable. And I still was like, I don't even know how I would get a job and keep a job. I mean, my bandmates were somehow managing it, but like, I just was like, I have so little experience, and like, I've quit most of the jobs I've held unceremoniously. I feel like I'm unemployable. But then something would happen. I don't know. One time some Australian swimsuit ad used a song of mine, and I was like, wow, okay. That's $6,000. I to this day, I'm like, I had no other plan if I hadn't gotten that money. And I was so torn up about it as a punk. Like, I was like, I'm going to take corporate money for use of my song in a friggin' advertisement that feels so not what I should be doing. I guess when I realized, like, well, I could have been like sort of working at Starbucks all this time instead of that, and like, is that better? I don't know why that would be more ethically pure than getting $6,000 from an Australian swimsuit company. It's just like, it's pure chaos. Just looking back at my life, especially like from a making ends meet perspective, it's just total chaos. And I have to mention again that like complexly and not directly, but like there is just I come from money, you know, my parents had money and I could always land at their house. Even when it felt complicated, I still landed there. So like, I don't know. It's just like, I feel like pointing out all the time to everybody that there is a class barrier built into the music business. And like, even though like, it's that hard for me who like had a sort of a safety net and like got a loan from my parents at one point to buy a touring van and paid it back. But like, yeah, there's big barriers to participating in this work.
Thank you so much for being up for this, Ezra.
Thank you. It was a pleasure talking with you.
So there she was, Ezra Furman on 101. Her new album, All of Us Flames, comes out on the 26th of August. You can catch her on tour in the UK this year. I'm just looking at the dates now. You can catch her on tour in the UK this November. Also a date at Edinburgh International Festival on August the 23rd. All of those dates you can find at ezrafurman.com. I'm back later this week with an episode with English teacher. Cheers for listening. Here's Sparrer.
I've been working all day for me mate on the side, running around like a blue ass fly. I've been working all day for me mate. Every bleeding minute I've been on the go, up and down the ladder like a fiddler's elbow. I've been working all day for me mate.
This is a Mighty Moon Media podcast.